With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. Dr. Harris defends Development Bank amid criticism during budget debate. ECCB Governor shares Christmas message amid economic optimism and challenges. 2 charged in forensic laboratory break-in in St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Lucia Prime Minister calls for dialogue amid police wage negotiations. Food, music, dance and gifts. Veer technical students treat senior citizens. Internationally, unrest in Syria as new government tries to unite the country under post-Assad regime. Now, the details. In defense of the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis, former Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, used the recent budget debates to highlight what he perceives as mischaracterizations of the bank's financial standing and its critical role in the economy. Amid ongoing allegations regarding fund mismanagement under his administration, he lobbied those sentiments to the current Labour administration, asserting the institution's imperative function in safeguarding economic stability.
Development Bank is not a deposit bank. Development Bank lends in accordance with public policy,
he explained, emphasizing its integral role as a lender for educational loans, mortgages, and small business support. Addressing the notion of financial mismanagement, he pointed to the bank's track record under the leadership of his brother, Len Harris, who was CEO of the bank at the time of his alleged dismissal.
The Development Bank, when he joined, was at 43 million. When they forced him out and forced him to take legal action against them in court, it is my brother Lenwood Harris who initiated an action for unfair dismissal against the government.
Harris's defense of his brother was an attempt to highlight the bank's profitability and ability to operate without government subsidies, further arguing against the perception that the bank requires a government bailout.
You hear them come here and they talk about we had to bail it out. Bail out what?
He underscored that the Development Bank had consistently recorded profits, stating it was, quote, the largest lender of educational loans in the country, end quote, providing essential funding for students and families. Throughout his remarks, Harris conveyed a sense of urgency regarding the accusations against the Development Bank, characterizing them as politically motivated and unfounded.
But here are the facts, because the matter is sub judice. So I'm not getting into that aspect of it.
He stated, reinforcing the complexity of the situation and the necessity of facts over speculation. Moreover, he addressed the broader economic implications of the Development Bank's operations, linking its role to national development.
The bank accounted for 32% of all residential family home mortgages in St. Kitts and Nevis. Over $125 million.
He detailed, pointing to the significant economic impact the institution has on housing and lending within the community. Harris's rebuttal extended to the government's fiscal policies, particularly highlighting the challenges faced by businesses and individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic. He outlined the previous administration's efforts to protect the Development Bank and the broader economy.
So we allowed that. So of course the bank would not pay. But it did so with the knowledge and the approval of the cabinet of the country.
He clarified, indicating that measures were taken to support those most affected during the crisis. Dr. Harris's defense reiterates the Development Bank's significant role in St. Kitts and Nevis and the complex dynamics of governmental decisions and economic management. With increasing scrutiny on financial practices and public institutions, Harris calls for a balanced understanding of the development narrative in the country, one that acknowledges both the challenges and the successes of entities like the Development Bank. In his Christmas message for 2024, Timothy N.J. Antoine, the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, delivered a message of hope and reflection, emphasizing the unique challenges of faith, family, love, and hope that Christmas represents.
But the angel said to them, do not be afraid, for I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Luke chapter 2 verse 10, New International Version.
Antoine acknowledged the challenges faced by the region, including the persistent threat of climate change, as he expressed gratitude for the protection afforded to most territories from major hurricanes this year. Highlighting the positive economic indicators, Governor Antoine noted the strength of the Eastern Caribbean dollar, which currently boasts a backing of 98.3%, and the improvement in reserves. He observed that the pace of economic activity has accelerated mainly due to the tourism sector and enhanced air connectivity. Although inflation rates have decreased from their peak 2 years ago, he cautioned that prices remain resistant to significant decline. Expressing appreciation for the support received from member countries and partners, Antoine acknowledged the unwavering dedication of the ECCB team. He highlighted the region's economic growth projection of 4 to 5% for 2025. Looking ahead, the governor emphasized the importance of collaboration and collective action in navigating the ever-changing geopolitical landscape. He reiterated the ECCB's commitment to initiatives such as the Big Push Challenge, which aims to significantly expand the economies of the Eastern Caribbean over the next decade. The ECCB governor highlighted particular focus areas, including establishing a regional regulator for citizenship by investment, facilitating easier access to banking services, enhancing financial literacy, and promoting sustainable financial practices. As his message concluded, Antoine extended warm wishes to all, stating,
"From my family and me to you, the Monetary Council, our board, executive, management, staff, interns, retirees, local, regional, and international partners, and the citizens and residents of the ECCU, here's wishing you a joyous Christmas. May 2025 be a healthy, productive, and prosperous year for you."
Ainan Nias and Vernon Nias Jr., both residents of Greenland's St. Kitts, face charges of breaking with intent following a burglary at the Tabernacle Forensics Lab on October 2nd, 2023. The Bastia Police Station officially charged the pair, with Vernon Nias Jr. being processed on December 18th, 2024, while Ainan Nias received his charges the following day, December 19th, 2024. Ainan Nias is already under scrutiny, facing 4 additional serious charges from earlier this year, including possession of ammunition, possession of cannabis with intent to supply, the murder of Shaquille Chumney, the murder of Jimmy Allen. The recent forensic lab incident has added to Nias's extensive legal troubles and heightened concerns about crime in the area. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force expressed appreciation to the public for their ongoing support in maintaining community safety and security. Authorities encourage citizens to remain vigilant and cooperative in the fight against crime as investigations continue into these and related incidents. In regional news, St. Lucia Prime Minister calls for dialogue amid police wage negotiations. HTS News Force has that report.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre emphasized the need for dialogue and compromise during ongoing wage negotiations with police officers while launching a new mobile police station initiative in St. Lucia. At the unveiling ceremony, he addressed concerns regarding police remuneration, reaffirming his commitment to a peaceful resolution. Last week, Pierre announced a proposed 13% wage increase from the GNT for public servants over 6 years, along with a 500 end-of-year bonus and the rollout of back pay scheduled for February 2025.
I will speak the truth all the time. I will say what's available, and I expect good sense to prevail. That is my job. My job is to create an environment for all the people of St. Lucia. I want to thank the Civil Service Association for accepting what the government negotiation team has provided. As it relates to the police, we are open to discussion. This is not a war. This is not, although some people are calling for war, we're not calling for war. We're calling for discussion, we're calling for compromise. So let me say it again. Anyone who believes they'll find themselves in a battle with this Prime Minister over the police or over nurses, over doctors, they will not get it. This is something that I have made abundantly clear. So let's talk, let's discuss it, let's make it work.
The Prime Minister announced plans to strengthen law enforcement's capacity with nearly 240 new officers by 2026, along with an additional 70 rangers focused on tourism security.
By June next year, there'll be 80 more police recruits. And we're looking to see if we can probably do another 80. If we can do another 80 in January 2026, another 80, so we can have about 240 new policemen in the system. And you can call them replacement policemen, no matter what you want to call them. We're going to put 240 new boots on the ground. So, in terms of police personnel again, we are implementing the Rangers program. We're going to put between 50 and 70 more Rangers on the streets, with particular reference to the tourism industry. So hopefully, by the end of 2026, we should have about 300 new law enforcement personnel on the ground in St. Lucia.
Pierre asserted that public safety transcends political interests, noting that crime affects everyone regardless of affiliation. He expressed determination to ensure the law enforcement personnel receives the required support from the state, but admits there are constraints.
Let not your heart be troubled. What the government can afford, the government will give. Let me say it again. What the government can afford, the government will give. The government will not be able to take blood out of stone. But this Prime Minister is not in for any war. And anyone who is planning it, tell them to change their plans. This Prime Minister is not in for any war with any doctor, any nurse, any policeman, any civil servant, any teacher. I'm not going there. So let's not look for war. Let's sit down and work and let the country survive. And I want to wish all of you Caesar's greetings.
The Mobile Police Station initiative represents a new approach to community policing in St. Lucia, following models seen in other countries. Discussion between the government negotiating team and the island's protective services, including correctional and police, are ongoing. Gina Filippi, HDS News Force.
Food, music, dance, and gifts. Veer Technical students treat senior citizens. Television Jamaica has the details.
Students and seniors unite. Ramada Lyons has that story.
School is out, but Veer Technical students had one final assignment this year. That was making this Christmas a memorable one for the elderly in their community.
Just to give back to the community as a service. I love doing it, love being involved. It's a very nice initiative to be a part of, and it's a privilege as well.
Seniors gathered at school, not for a PTA meeting and not to file a complaint against any student, just for a good time. It was an afternoon of dancing, gift-giving, sixth formers serving meals, some singing, taking the seniors to church.
I felt good to be a part of it the first time, and I'm so glad I get to be a part of it again. So even though this is my last year, I'm really worked and started from Wednesday preparing and just to do everything that I can and be a part of it and just contribute.
Ruthden Francis has been a member of the school board longer than the students have been alive, 28 years. So to be treated by them was heartwarming.
The seniors enjoy it, and we want to congratulate the Veer Technical High School and the sixth formers for this outreach program for the seniors.
The students have been doing it for 14 years.
These days, young people don't recognize elderly, but we appreciate them for recognizing the elderly in the community who really want a little entertainment and going out of the house instead of sitting there all along.
I'm here after here, and it's very good for the young people to recognize the seniors in the community, and they treat us well.
Now, Ms. Stevenson wants to make it clear that where indiscipline is concerned, a few spoiled apples cannot ruin the bunch.
It's not all of them indisciplined enough. Well, you'll find a few, and that is from the beginning. You also find young people indisciplined in my time. So now it depends on how you treat them, how you approach them, so they'll respect you.
And as 2025 creeps into focus, her wish for the youngsters.
First and foremost, I advise them to seek God in their life, to seek God. And next thing, for their education.
Principal O'Neill Lewis says the program started in 2010 and has only grown wings in terms of impact.
It is a program which integrates us with the community and something which the community has embraced wholeheartedly. The grade 12 and 13 students, they took this on as their community outreach project, and we have actually bought into it, and it is a valuable one to us and the community.
With your ray of hope, I'm Romarda Lyon.
We now bring you these international reports.
14 police officers have been killed in Syria's western region of Tartus. The new administration says they were ambushed by forces loyal to the ousted Assad government. Reinforcements have been sent to the capital and other cities. The incident follows a day of demonstrations. Protests erupted after video of a religious site being attacked circulated online, and in response, police imposed an overnight curfew in the cities of Homs, Tartus, Jebla and Latakia. Well, the violence and protests are the latest challenges faced by the new Syrian administration. Osama bin Javid has more from the capital, Damascus.
These are members of the Alawi sect in Syria's Homs. They are protesting after a video went viral showing the desecrated shrine of an Alawi religious figure. Syria's information minister says the video is old and no such incidents have taken place since the ouster of the Assad regime. A curfew was imposed in at least 4 cities, and the new administration sent reinforcements to Tartus and Homs. In a statement, the Ministry of Interior told Al Jazeera, "We warn against spreading rumors that seek to destabilize peace. We will not hesitate to pursue anyone who seeks to tamper with the security of our people and their property, and bring them to justice to receive their just punishment." On Tuesday, Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei urged Syrian youth to, quote, "stand firmly and resolutely against those who planned and executed this chaos, and that they had nothing left to lose." Syria's interim foreign minister responded on social media. He said Iran must respect the will of the Syrian people. We caution them against spreading chaos in Syria and hold them accountable for their recent remarks. In Syria's northwest, more clashes between US-backed Kurdish forces and the Turkey-backed Syrian National Army. SNA fighters shared their drone videos targeting Kurdish locations near the Tishreen Dam. The Euphrates River remains the dividing line between Turkey-backed forces and others it called terrorists that it is determined to clear from its borders.
We are determined to crush the heads of terrorist organizations that threaten the perpetuity of both Turkey and Syria, starting with ISIL and the PKK. As I said after the cabinet meeting, the old conditions are impossible. The separatist murderers will either bid farewell to their weapons, or they will be buried in Syrian lands along with their weapons.
Ahmed al-Shaara's administration also faces the challenge of securing its borders against Israeli incursions. More Syrians were wounded near Quneitra as they protested against Israel's occupation of more Syrian territory. Syrians say Israel is in violation of the 1974 agreement to keep the buffer zone demilitarized along the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. But Israel's military continues to enter Syrian territory on almost a daily basis.
We will ensure here in Gaza, as with Lebanon, as with Syria and in the east, there will be no more threats created against Israeli communities, citizens of the State of Israel and IDF soldiers.
There is mounting pressure on the 17-day-old government which took over from Assad's family's decades-old rule. To protect a country's borders and to deal with multiple fault lines in a country ravaged by war is not going to be easy. And a first step to disband all armed groups under a united chain of command will require US-backed Kurdish forces to agree to become part of the national fold. Osama bin Javid, Al Jazeera, Damascus.
Let's cross over to Hashim Albra, who's in the presidential palace grounds in Damascus, a significant location where you are, Hashim, but the administration also is trying to put out a lot of fires across all parts of the country, curfews in place, police under attack, and social media under scrutiny.
Indeed. Suhail, the reason why I'm here at the presidential
palace is that we're expecting a meeting between the de facto leader of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara, with a senior delegation from Iraq led by the intelligence chief. Quite a significant development. Relations were not good over the last few days between Syria and Iraq. It could be an indication both parties are trying to figure out how to move forward and de-escalate. Now, in the violent events that took place over the last 24 hours, there's been a meeting yesterday between the top military command of the new administration about whether to reach out to the local community or use of force. Today, they have decided to launch a major military security operation in Tartus. This is the area where 14 security members were killed yesterday. We've been told that the army, along with the Minister of Interior, are now launching this operation. The reason why they're doing this, they told us, is basically they believe that when they took over the capital, most of the people loyal to Bashar al-Assad fled to the northwestern part of the country and the southeastern part of the country. And their biggest concern now is to try to figure out who are those people and ensure that they hand over their weapons. In Latakia and Tartus, that's exactly we're expecting to see more of the clampdown on what the authorities here describe as remnants of the former regime. The concern here is that if this leads to more of a bloody confrontation, it could destabilize the entire country and send a negative signal to the international community looking forward to see a peaceful transition to democracy in Syria. Tartus, Latakia have become now a sectarian fault line, the biggest challenge so far to the authority of Ahmed al-Shara, who's been now in control for about 4 weeks. Quite fast-moving events now across different parts of the country, an extremely sensitive situation. I've seen people very skeptical since yesterday, pretty much concerned about what could happen next in Syria. Hashim Albra there for us in Damascus. Let's cross over pardon me, to Mohammed Val, who's in Manbij in northern Syria. And as Hashim said there, Mohammed, Tartus and Latakia under a great deal of strain. There are armed factions where you are, either backed by Turkey or the US, that are also fighting. What seems to be happening where you are right now?
Yes, there is a little bit of calm here in Manbij where we are right now, but that hasn't been the situation just 24 hours ago. There have been reports during the last couple of days of clashes and skirmishes around the city. That's because since this city fell into the hands of the Syrian National Army just 2 weeks ago, the Kurds who have been pushed east of the Euphrates River are trying to retake it. So it's a very tense situation, and it is the picture is not that clear, just like the weather that you see behind me. And people here are feeling that any moment, things can change in this city. It seems like everything is okay, traffic is going on, and people are going about their lives. But they tell us that the situation can change any time. The Kurdish fighters, backed by the US, have been in control of this place for some time. And the Syrian National Army, backed by Turkey, have now taken it. It is in charge of it. On our way to the city, we have seen their new fortifications, and not only trying to maintain their presence in the city, but also they are trying to widen the area of their control. They are trying to keep the Kurdish fighters east of the Euphrates River. This city has been the last stronghold of the Kurdish fighters in the western side of the Euphrates River. It is a geopolitical situation here because Turkey thinks that it has high stakes in this place since they accuse some of the factions under the umbrella of the Syrian Democratic Forces of being linked to the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is a part of the Turkish component of the Kurdish component inside Turkey, and they accuse those factions of being terrorists and that Turkey is going to wipe them out, either on the Turkish side or on the Syrian side. So it's a matter of national security for neighboring Turkey. The Americans also are backing the Kurds, and that makes this situation much more complicated for the new government in Damascus, trying to, as you said, put out the fires. everywhere now across the country, and this is one of the challenging sides or parts of that situation.
It's 3 o'clock at the Erlöserkirche in Berlin, where the Christmas message to the faithful is one of cheer and sharing. But this queue isn't for the service inside, it's for the food bank outside.
There is always less food each time. I get the basic pension, but the state is cheating here. Can I be open and honest? Because the job centers force people to work and don't pay any pensions. As a result, the state is cheating us and making us poorer and poorer. It is important people know that.
There are almost 1,000 food banks across Germany taking in unsold stock from supermarkets and selling it for next to nothing to those in need. But shortages this year meant some people had to be turned away temporarily.
Because it was just too many people, partly because of the Ukrainian refugees, and we still have a few from Afghanistan. When you notice there were just too many and it's no longer possible to provide something reasonable, you just have to say, it's not possible.
The numbers are clear. This year, around 60% of food banks in Germany have had to ration what they offer customers. Currently, they're helping around 1.6 million people. That's an increase of 50% since the war in Ukraine began. High food prices have been an issue here for several years, with many people struggling to feed their families. The caretaker Chancellor Olaf Scholz says he feels their pain.
Many people feel every time they go shopping in the supermarket checkout how much food prices have risen in recent years. That's why I'm campaigning for us to cut the already reduced VAT from 7 to 5%.
Charities say it would be a first step, but nothing more than that. They believe food banks cannot plug the gap left by the state. Dominic Kane, Al Jazeera, Berlin.
Commemorations have been taking place in countries across the Indian Ocean to mark the 20th anniversary of the catastrophic tsunami that killed more than 220,000 people. A vigil was held in Banda Aceh on the island of Sumatra, close to the epicentre of the huge underwater earthquake that triggered the tsunami. The vigil followed a siren that sounded shortly before 8 a.m. local time, the exact moment of the earthquake 20 years ago. The tsunami on the 26th of December 2004 is one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history, killing people in more than a dozen countries. Our Southeast Asia correspondent Jonathan Head, who witnessed the devastation in 2004, sent this report.
The chilling wail of the warning sirens this morning in Banda Aceh in northern Indonesia, marking the moment when this city was almost completely wiped out by the biggest tsunami of modern times. A frightening reminder for survivors, yet also a reassurance that today they are better prepared. In Thailand, they hung photographs of those who died on the tiled memorial, which reaches the height of the wave which smashed into the beaches on that Boxing Day morning. Most of the 151 British victims died here.
I feel dismay. It's been 20 years. I came here every day. Time flies, but it passes slowly in our minds.
Few understood what was happening back then as they watched the lethal torrent of water roar in. There had been no warnings. Thailand, like Sri Lanka, was a long way from the massive earthquake which sent the wave racing across the Indian Ocean.
Over here in this building, well, at the moment they...
For those of us reporting the tsunami, it was like nothing we had experienced before. Arriving on Phi Phi Island in Thailand, I watched them pull body after body, most of them tourists still in their colourful beachwear, from under the rubble. 1,300 had died on this small island in a matter of minutes. The destruction I witnessed in Indonesia was on an almost unimaginable scale. Scenes of death and grief which remain burnt into my memory. Yet the survivors rebuilt and recovered, sometimes from communities of which only fragments remained, leaving here and there monuments to that dreadful day, and carrying the hard lessons learnt on what to do should they hear the sirens, part of a now greatly improved warning system, go off.
Our Southeast Asia correspondent Jonathan Head reporting there. And Jonathan has been following commemorations in Thailand on the 20th anniversary.
In Aceh, which is a devoutly Muslim area, they held a very big prayer session in the Grand Mosque, which survived the onslaught of the tsunami which destroyed most of the city. The mosques tended to do quite well because they've got very thin pillars and the water went straight through them without knocking them down. It's a symbol of Acehnese identity, so that was the place to hold it. They tested the sirens, which they now have. Of course, they've got a much better warning system today than they had 20 years ago. And one of the problems 20 years ago was that, in Aceh they had this massive earthquake. Their city was badly damaged even before the wave came. Some people understood a tsunami might be coming. There were some, and I've interviewed them, who did know that they needed to get to higher ground, but many people didn't know that. And of course, on the beaches of Thailand, where I also reported down in the south near Phuket, tourists there had no expectation, the earthquake was a long way off, that this would happen. At the time, people actually walked out onto the beach when they saw the sea receding, very surprisingly, totally unaware that within minutes it would come roaring back. So, it's an awful lot of commemorations of those events. In Thailand, there's a memorial in Khao Lak, one of the worst affected areas, in the form of two walls, one of them tiled, curved like a wave, that come up to the height that the wave came in at, and that was where we saw family members of those who were lost hanging photographs. There was an official commemoration in Thailand as well, but lots of little ceremonies remembering that day 20 years ago right across the southern coast in Thailand, and of course similar memorials in Sri Lanka. Every community is doing it in their own way. There's not a lot to analyse apart from the lessons learnt in terms of being prepared. It was simply something absolutely massive that traumatised communities, but from which most of them have made remarkable recoveries.
We've been hearing from survivors of the Boxing Day tsunami. And of course, Jonathan, you were there 20 years ago too. What are your memories of that time?
Just loss and grief and death on a scale that I doubt I will ever witness again. It was very overwhelming for all of us reporting it. Interestingly, at the time, it was a shock to see just so many dead bodies, but it was, in many ways, the survivors who were much more difficult for us to deal with just because of their raw, despairing grief about just how much they had lost. And you could do little else as a reporter but just sit there and listen to them, and we couldn't help them. There's nothing we could do. It needed the most enormous aid effort to help these places recover. Sometimes we wept with them. You just couldn't help but be overwhelmed. But I do think it's a different kind of a story for a reporter than many of the conflicts we cover, where there's a lot of divisiveness, there are huge debates about right and wrong, a sense of anger that things have gone wrong or have not been fixed. There wasn't anything that could have been done really about a disaster on this scale, apart from the preparedness that is now much better than it was. And I think that, and the sense that the incredible resilience people showed, the way they were able to recover when there was almost nothing left of their families or communities, has actually been quite inspiring. And there were useful lessons learnt. The Thais learnt a lot about, for example, DNA identification of victims. It was very challenging from the first, with victims from 45 different countries. In Aceh, the worst affected area, it actually helped shock both the government and a long-standing insurgent movement into agreeing to end a long and very damaging civil war. And we saw some very innovative ways of delivering aid. So, for all of the horrors that we witnessed, much good came out of it as well.
Jonathan Head speaking to me a little earlier. Well, Richard de Gottel, a survivor of the tsunami, shared his memories of that time.
First of all, just want to say my heartfelt condolences to everyone that lost someone in the tsunami. I was very fortunate and lucky. I was staying in a hotel right on the seafront of Patong Beach, which was hit by the tsunami. It destroyed the tsunami. So I was a little bit, being out Christmas Day night, and I was sleeping, and then there was a lot of banging on the door, like bang, 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 bang. And I could hear screaming and shouting. I was like, I can't get out of bed. I'm just going to go to sleep. And then there was like a massive roar and a bang. And that was the tsunami smashing into the seafront and the hotel. And I was like, oh, what's that noise? I have no idea what it was. And then I sort of woke, I thought, well, I've got to get up now, see what's happening. And there was no light, no electric. And I was like, open the door of my room that was looking over into the reception. And it was like a bomb. It was just, everything was destroyed. There was cars, there was water. There was people dead, like floating in the water. And it was just a scene of, it was just devastating. Like I thought a bomb had actually gone off when I opened the door. And I managed to get down to like the seafront, and all the Patong seafront, all the restaurants, everything was just all destroyed. And then I was walking in the water, and it was just, I just didn't know what happened. And so I said, tsunami's come. You've got to get to safe ground. You've got to get higher out. You've got to get away from the area. So I sort of made my way through all the hotel, managed to get my passport, my money, and then made my way to a safer part of the island. So, and then I sort of stayed for a few days. We helped with the clear up operation. We went to Khao Lak, which was really badly hit, like took supplies up there and water. So I helped out for the rest of my holiday, just helping out with the clear up operation.
And in fact, you stayed out in Thailand, didn't you, for around 6 months before coming back to the UK. Why were you so keen to do that?
I just wanted to help and put something back. And I did a little bit of teaching out there. And then I really liked the teaching side of things. So I thought I'd like to do that. And then in 2011, I actually ended up going back to be a teacher out in Thailand.
So 20 years has passed now. You must consider yourself exceptionally fortunate to have got out alive. What are your most vivid memories and thoughts about what happened?
It's just the seeing it totally destroyed. Like I just remember waking up and it was just, and I had to, when I was walking out of the hotel, there was like people like in the water just floating dead, and it was just awful. The devastation was just horrible.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: Dr. Harris defends development bank amid criticism during budget debate. ECCB governor shares Christmas message amid economic optimism and challenges. 2 charged in forensic laboratory break-in in St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Lucia Prime Minister calls for dialogue amid police wage negotiations. Food, music, dance and gifts. Veer technical students treat senior citizens. Internationally, unrest in Syria as new government tries to unite the country under post-Assad regime. Thank you for listening.